I can't believe, like, I wasn't expecting. This is the perfect opportunity. This goal of the week competition is the perfect opportunity for, like, our expectations were low, but holy fuck. Like,
I mean, there's like, okay, good goal, nice goal. Wow, what a banger. What the fuck?
Like
it was not a good goal. Like, it was fine, but there's like zero defending.
It's a header.
And it's off a fucking set piece.
It's a header on a set piece. Like, do me a favor. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC, a proud member of the Beautiful Game Network, and brought to you by Roughneck Scarves and Icarus FC. I'm your host, Phil Bakke, and tonight I'm joined by my co-host, Mika Burrell, to talk some real Locomotive football. Mika, it is good to be back.
It is, yeah. Wish that the result could have matched the hype, but that's okay. I think we'll dissect it all tonight. Because on paper, things aren't what they seem. Let's say that. I
like the intriguing intro. We're really like building something here. The clickbait is real.
The audio clickbait.
Number 3 might surprise you. I do want to bring up, speaking of threes, before we dive into what was at once like a disappointing result for Locomotive, but at the same time encouraging and certainly intriguing performance. I did want to highlight the fact that you turned right around after the match and wrote some thoughts on what we learned. Just 3 things we learned in this opening match from John Hutchinson's Locomotive. And that is live on our Patreon right now for anyone who subscribes. So if you're interested in finding out more about this team, finding out more about maybe the greater context of this game, Mika's piece is up. And Mika, I know writing in that way can sometimes it sometimes acts as a little bit of therapy for us. But in this case, like, we were kind of trying to push back against some of the like narrative that was building out there.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said at the top of the show, I think it was disappointing not to come away with anything, coming back from Sacramento, but it was therapeutic for me. I started writing it on my phone at like 6:00 in the morning the next day. I woke up like in a sweat and was like, I need to write something. Like, it'll make me feel better. And I thought it was going to be, a really quick thing, but it ended up being over 1,000 words. And when you look at, and what I did look at the cold hard numbers and watch back some of the game, it was a really good performance. It was the most convincing that I think I've ever seen us on an opening night. Granted, there's only been 4 of those, but I think it was really good. I think it was really instructive, like I said in my piece, and I highlighted what I thought were the big takeaways, which we'll get into now. But if you want to, check that out on Patreon, by all means. There's a good discussion going on in the comments too. Really appreciate that from our patrons who are, giving their takes. And to be fair, even, our patrons kind of saw a lot of the same things that we did about the positives from this performance. And again, I think 3-1 is really harsh, and I think it flatters to deceive, to be honest, with all respect to the opponent. But it was therapeutic for sure to write it, and hopefully everyone who read it enjoyed it. I think it'll be available for everyone to read tomorrow maybe around lunchtime or in the evening. So anyway,
No, that I think you bring up a couple of good points. I mean, the first being that, one, our Patreon, for those who are subscribed or who might be interested in subscribing, patreon.com/seriouslyloco. Look for us there. It's a little bit of a community developing there. And I love how it turns into a dialogue, because we are writing these pieces, but it's not in a vacuum, and it's not, we're not deigning that, like, oh, these are these are the truths that we've bestowed upon you. Everyone has their chance to have a say, and it's just a cool little community that's developing on that platform. So yeah, if you're interested, it's a couple bucks a month to become a patron, and we'd love your support. If not, all of our articles always unlock, between 2 and 3 days after they post. So there is nothing that stays behind the paywall forever, and anybody is free to read the articles. It's just a matter of timing of when you get to read them. So definitely check that out. And if you're finding the podcast for the first time, we're on all the big podcast platforms. So if you give us a subscription, a follow, whatever the platform allows, and if you give us a rating as well, once you reach the end, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, then consider giving us a rating on that podcast. 5 stars really does help us out and gets more eyes and ears to the show. We're also on social media on Twitter at Seriously Loco, and we're also on Instagram at Seriously_Loco. So check us out on whichever platform you prefer. We're on Facebook too, but whichever you found us on, we're happy to have you. Well, Mika, I mean, we may as well dive right in. The Seriously Loco match review. This match, it's been a long wait in terms of, John Hutchinson's announcement, arrival. We've interviewed him, we've interviewed a bunch of players, we've written pieces on these players, and we finally got a chance to see John Hutchinson's El Paso Locomotive in action. The result, Sacramento 3, El Paso Locomotive 1, as you said, maybe not as informative as the performance itself. But I wanted to start just talking about the lineup, because we knew that it was going to be different, and we knew based on John Hutchinson's philosophy that he was going to come out in a very different style from Mark Lowry. But even from the announcement of that lineup, this was a pretty clear statement of intent that, yeah, this is very different, and it's different in some interesting ways, but also some exciting ways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the immediate thing that jumped off the page is obviously the 4-3-3. Not necessarily something that we saw a whole lot in the Mark Lowry era, and that's exactly what John said he was going to play from the very first interview that he did when he was announced as the new manager. So far, everything that this man has said is coming to fruition. I mean, he's been very clear with the fans, and I like that. But yeah, the formation itself is obviously the big departure, and 4-3-3 definitely more of a European style, you might say, a continental style. If we're talking about some of the big sides in Europe that play that way, the 10, that whole that player in the hole, Mesut Ozil or James Rodriguez, is kind of like falling by the wayside, and it looks like with all the cams we have, they're being repurposed into 8s. Obviously, we saw Luna and Mahrez either side of Richie as the lone 6, and I think that worked actually really well. The back line, I think, was pretty predictable, actually. Just from what we saw in preseason, Eguiluz and Payares was definitely the pairing of choice. Yuma not quite ready, having only got about 45 minutes of play in preseason. So, but in the front line is where it was really intriguing, with Sebastian Velasquez in the number 9 role, ostensibly. So yeah, that was interesting. I'm wondering what you made of that, because I think that is the thing that jumped off the page, right?
Oh, absolutely. I was blown away. It was one of those moments where, for the amount of talk, I guess, in terms of we talked to Mark a lot during his tenure, and about the fact that he watched Liverpool a lot, watched City a lot, but Liverpool in particular, this was straight out of the Liverpool playbook of the last 5 years, of a non-traditional player playing in a number 9 position, but certainly not playing as a center forward, with 2 pacey wingers trying to get in behind like either side of him. This was very much in that same vein of with Francois and Sinupe either side of Sebastian Velasquez. Not the same in the sense that like they weren't inverted, they weren't constantly trying to cut in and shoot or anything like that. But in terms of them occupying wide areas and using their pace to get in behind, to create space for themselves and to set each other up, link up with the midfield, link up with each other. This was a very kind of Kloppian approach, I guess, in many ways. Velasquez at center forward did surprise me because I think anybody smart money and kind of easy money would have said, if he had been healthy for this match, would have said like, okay, Lucho is likely the guy up top. Like, I think we all kind of thought that was going to be the approach. Big number 9, speedy wingers either side of him, like technical players with, good heads on their shoulders. Kind of a natural fit, but the way it ended up interacting with Velasquez in that false 9 position, I actually really liked it. And I think in the opening half hour, like it gave Sacramento Republic absolute fits.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty much free to drift across that forward line and kind of keep Sacramento's defenders honest and guessing as to where he was going to go. And actually, I think the fluidity in general of the formation and of the position, something that I go into great detail on the Patreon piece, was really, I think, giving Sacramento problems. I mean, look no further than the goal, right, by Sinupe. Diego and Dylan were everywhere, helping to create those overloads in the wide areas. And Diego ends up in that center forward / like cam position, and everyone's thinking he's going to take this shot. Unsettles the entire back line. They can't react fast enough to him, just slipping it to Sinupe, who finishes beautifully. Yeah. He was excellent. I thought he was man of the match, honestly. And yeah, I mean the
on a better surface, Sinupe has a hat trick. Let's be real. That's honestly on a better surface.
He was falling over himself, and at first I thought it was just like, wow, this guy's too quick for his own good. But actually, one of the comments on the Patreon piece was like, the pitch was terrible, and fair enough.
Cutting up constantly, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fair enough. He had a lot of chances, and judging by different models, I mean, I looked at YC for the XG, but apparently the league put our XG at 3.33 expected goals, which is far and away the best XG posted this weekend.
Yeah.
So, when we say that the scoreline is not the whole story, that's kind of what we mean. Sacramento actually overperformed their XG by a bit. And the 2 goals that they scored were, we were all pushed all the way up trying to get something out of the game, which is admirable, actually, I think. You're on the road. You might, a Mark Lowry side, and this is not to be derogatory, but a Mark Lowry side might, sit back and manage a bit more. And I think that, John was trying to make a statement with this one and try to get something. And, the gamble ends up not working out, and, that's football.
You mentioned the XG, and like Sac Republic outperforming their XG when they had a penalty kick and 2 1-on-1s like late in the game. When you think back on Sac Republic's chances throughout the match, the only other time that they threatened was when Gurr cracked the crossbar from like long range. There wasn't a whole lot that they created, which like we'll get on to maybe the different aspects of that from a Locomotive perspective, but the thing out of the gates that would have struck like any fan who's watched Locomotive for the last 3 seasons up till now, the look and the feel of this game right out of the gate felt completely different from watching Locomotive the last 3 seasons. And again, not to be derogatory, but all around the field, and you mentioned some of the tactical fluidity, and I think this played a part in it feeling so different. But right from the get-go, you see Andrew Fox and Siobhan John Brown popping up in like midfield areas, even on the edge of the area and sometimes in the box. You see Diego Luna and Dylan Maris swapping sides. You see them cutting in from out to in. You see them dropping deep to receive the ball. You see them on the edge of the area. And then you see Francois and Sinope like really locking down those outside areas, beating men on the dribble, running in behind. Sebastian Velasquez is like dropping into the hole and receiving the ball in midfield. And then even he actually makes a run in behind, which is not typical of him either, typically playing in a 10. So there's all kinds of movement, positioning, and everything. And all of it is happening at a breakneck pace. Like everything is happening so fast in what we're seeing. And it was overwhelming on Sac Republic, and they could not deal with it. Like when we came out of the blocks in the opening half hour, they could not cope with it. And we absolutely deserved to be not just the 1 goal up from Sinope, but we probably had with the penalty and then probably 2 other chances. Like it probably should have been 3-0 inside the opening 20 minutes.
For sure. Sinope had that, well, it was Dylan Maris, who cracks one from just outside the area, forces Saldana into a save. He parries it short to Sinope, into Sinope's path, but it bounces just kind of wildly off the pitch, and he's not able to get ahead to it. So, I mean, that's number one. The penalty that Sinope creates, baiting Dan Casey into that situation and completely getting the challenge wrong. Richie's take is disappointing, to be fair to him.
Yeah.
Although I don't know that Saldana actually knew much about it. I think the foot just angles out and that was that. But yeah, I mean, if it was 3-0, you wouldn't have been surprised. We had so many chances, and this is also something that I personally felt was different, is that I felt like I couldn't look away or I might miss something. From the very first whistle, and even the Sacramento commentators, to be fair to them, said as much. Like their first sentence when kickoff happened was, and El Paso's already on the press. Like, and so yeah, I mean, it. Can this be sustained over 34 games and 90 minutes in each of those games? No, I don't think so. And we suffered. We suffered a lot for what we tried to do on the night with 3 injuries. Luckily, 2 of those, John Brown and Payares, didn't appear to be too serious because they were in training today. But no word yet on Sebastian Velasquez, who came out really early, unfortunately for him.
Yeah.
And names that you thought might be involved in the playing squad also were not fit. So, I think John is having to work with what he's got right now. A lot of people joined the squad late. But yeah, that I think that approach, it doesn't matter what the squad makeup is or who's available, who's not. I think that approach is very much here to stay and not going to be abandoned at the first sign of trouble, which we saw, right. On the night. So, yeah, really exciting. I think, again, Hutch is really being true to his word thus far that he wants to entertain the fans, because I was entertained.
Hugely.
Like, it was just helter-skelter out there, like, just insane. And yeah, it was really good. I can only imagine what that's going to be like at home, with, the crowd behind you. Because if they're able to get up for an away game like that, with Eighth Notch and the SWUP rocking, like, it's just going to be a whole nother level.
The interesting thing too is that, like, there's a couple of points that you touched on that I'd like to expand on a little bit. I think the first is, like, is it sustainable? I think for what we were, I think we're a little unlucky, and not to say, like, yes, we were absolutely unlucky in, like, the context of the game and the result, but I think we're a little unlucky in, if we have a 2-goal lead, like, let's say the penalty, we score the penalty, we stay on top, like, keep creating chances, we score the second, Sinupe's goal still goes in. Mm-hmm. And not counting anything else, if we go into halftime at 2-0, the second half looks quite different. Like, in terms of how we are like, I think we could afford to go into game management mode, not in the sense that like we're totally turning off the intensity, but we could certainly scale back. And I think like we actually ratcheted up the intensity at halftime in terms of the pressing, in terms of our involvement. So I think a lot of people are kind of looking at this and saying like, oh, Hutchinson just like sends him out there and is like having him sprint. Like, what is he, crazy? Like having that, like, this isn't sustainable. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it was 1-0 and then it was 1-1 at halftime. Like he's said from the beginning that he's not going to settle for draws. Like he's not going to settle, like he's going to keep attacking. So the idea that we would come out at 1-1 and just be like content with that and try to defend a 1-1 draw, like that's not only is that not what Hutch is going to do, I don't think anyone wants that. Like, I don't think anyone would want us to just like sit back and say, okay, like, hey, a point is a point. Let's just like get out of here, whatever. Like we were well on top in the first half. And if they had totally just like capitulated, then we're probably asking to lose anyways. Right, so that's my whole thought is like, is it sustainable like over the course of 90 minutes? Absolutely not. Like, but you could see how this approach, like we could have conceivably had 3 or 4 goals in the opening 20 minutes, at which point, yeah, it totally would have gone into let's possess the ball. Let's just like let's keep them at arm's length. You know, we've got this significant advantage. Let's just hold them off. At 1-0 and 1-1, like you can't really, you're not going to do that if you're trying to win the game. So yeah, I think it was a little bit of a catch-22 where I don't think he would have wanted it to stay that intense for 90 minutes, but we were kind of forced into it because we didn't capitalize on our chances when we had them. And even in the second half, we kept up the intensity. And we did pay the price with some minor injuries for sure, and guys having to come off. But seems like the toll was relatively light in terms of like any serious injuries or anything like that, and impacts. You know, a lot of players are back in training already. But I think the idea, like trying to make a judgment on Hutchinson's like, what is he, crazy? Like trying to do this for 90 minutes? It's like, well, no, he's not crazy. He's just trying to win a football match. Like that's like he was trying to win in the way that he knows. So anyways, I just think that the way the match played out, like forced us to stay more intense for longer than we would have probably done if we had established more of a lead earlier on.
I think that's absolutely fair. And here's where the team selection, could have benefited from an out-and-out number 9 is all the chances that we did create. Get Lucho Solognac on the end of some of those, and it is a thrashing in Sacramento. I'm sure of it. A lot of presentable chances that more natural finishers, if you will, take advantage of. So, and he's training too, and I'm sure he's part of the plans. You don't dye your hair bleach blonde to not have it be seen, right? So
no, he's primed. Lucho is primed for big numbers this year.
That's right. So yeah, I thought that overall it was really promising. And we had a question from Eric Ebal27 on Twitter. He said, what takeaways do you have from the first game that get you the most excited about the season? Obviously, I think we've kind of talked about the speed, the intensity. Anything else though about it that you really thought is like, wow, extrapolate this over 34 games and I'm really liking it?
Yeah. Well, I guess to kind of like narrow the microscope a little bit, we've kind of talked broadly about the team. I think the thing that most excites me, because I think I know where you're going to go, so I'm going to stay away from your territory. But I also, one of the things that most excited me about this match was just Diego Luna as an 8, like a true box-to-box midfielder. Well, maybe not box-to-box. He wasn't like tracking back too much. He's more of like a pressing 8, I guess, whatever. But regardless, like playing as an 8, he was able to pop up in so many areas. Like he was able to have such an influence on the way that we played. And so we talked about like how important he was going to be, but we're almost thinking of him in the way I was thinking of him as like he's going to be making an impact off of the wing, or maybe even deployed as like that false 9, like, or in a 10 position. But that, that pairing in midfield of him and Dylan was just so promising in terms of like the amount of influence that Diego is going to be able to have game to game, because he's not dropping deep out of I'm not getting on the ball, or, you know, frustration of like I need to get more involved in the game. He's dropping deep as like this is part of his game, and he's going to be able to make turns in midfield. He's going to be able to dribble past people. He's going to be able to make passes infield, make runs. And as we saw in this match, he's also going to be able to just like see space in front of him and move into it, like, and occupy where he's going to find where the play is going. He's going to find, like, he's got such a, you know, obviously he's just a super talented kid, but one of the things that I don't think we give him enough credit for, or he's gotten enough credit for, is he has a gigantic football brain. Like,
for sure.
He sees things that normal mortals just don't. And so getting him a little bit deeper and giving him the chance to make big decisions about where he's going to influence the game. I think that's a total game changer. And I think it's potentially a game changer, like, for him as a player, because it's a very different role than we saw him typically deployed in last year. But he looked absolutely, it fit him like a glove. And I'm so excited to see him, a whole season of him, like, in this sort of role.
Yeah, Diego can play anywhere is what this showed us. I mean, on the wing, as a cam, as a second striker, as an 8, he's just a threat wherever he is. And you're right about the IQ, I think. And that's the thing that's so impressive for him at his age, because there's a lot of 18-year-olds with a bag of tricks and, you know, threat on goal, but to consistently make the right decision at 18 years old is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, a less intelligent footballer maybe shoots in his position instead of laying it off to Sanupe, who was holding his position, you know, on the offside line, expertly ready to strike it.
Yeah.
He finds him with just the perfect weighted pass. And he was making decisions like that all night. Almost had a goal for himself as well. Another one that I think Saldana popped out. I don't know. I can't quite remember, but it just whistled just wide. So yeah, he's primed for another big season. But what I'm curious, before I say what my takeaway is, what you think I'm gonna say.
Well, so I mean, I think it's 2, but I think in terms of the excitement level, I think you're going to talk about the wingers, and I thought you might focus on Sanupe, but Francois and Sanupe's combination is what I was thinking.
Yeah. I mean, Francois and Sanupe are just prayers to all the fullbacks out there. I mean, I don't know how you deal with them other than how Sacramento dealt with them, which was fouling
a lot
and really cynical type stuff, or just not being able to deal with them at all because they get past them. Sanupe is so intelligent. I mean, I there's a GIF in my piece on Patreon of him drawing the penalty, and not only does he sense the contact that's coming, but he nicks the ball just a little bit, just so that Dan Casey can't get to it. You know, that's just intelligent play, right? And that the speed of thought. I mean, that I guess this is what another thing we learned about John Hutchinson's side, and you spoke about it in some of our preseason pods about the focus on elite training and elite footballing education. We're seeing that. We're seeing that these are really intelligent footballers, on top of all the physical and technical attributes they have. Because you do have to think fast when you're playing this kind of way. It's not just about sprinting. Most anyone can sprint, to be fair, most professional athletes. But to have the speed of thought to make all the right decisions in those areas is really something that comes from, growing up in Tottenham Hotspur's academy or athletic club or Bolton Wanderers, like whatever the case may be. in Francois' case being a known quantity in USL Championship, having played Eastern Conference football for a while and now coming over here and just looking like he's in mid-season form. I mean, his pace is unreal.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's going to be a problem for people, but for sure the wingers, I think we haven't played with wingers in like 3 years, really. So
we deployed Omar Salgado as like a false winger in the past. Like, I know it doesn't make any sense, but we sent him out there and said, just destroy the confidence of whatever fullback you're playing against. But there was no winger on the other side. Like there wasn't.
No, it was a lopsided. yeah, you're right. It was very much like him and maybe like James Kiffey or something. But that's a deep cut.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just exciting, and this is the kind of play that I think fans of Locomotive who are also fans of like the European game or maybe MLS, maybe Liga MX are used to. Like wingers are a must, I think, in modern football, and so it's really exciting for us to kind of, be part of that, if you will, part of that kind of, have that kind of modern look and approach to us. But the other takeaway that I had, and this you kind of like have to delve into the stats a little bit or watch the game with an eye to these players, because again, the scoreline's not going to help you figure this out. But I thought Martin Payares and Andre Aguiluz were excellent. Like just so good. Like and the high line, like it's a little bit of heart and mouth stuff, but I think for the most part they handled it really, really well. With Aguiluz, like he's exactly what I thought he would be, like in terms of very smart tackler, good balance. Like he didn't commit a single foul while winning almost 84% of his defensive duels. Like that is insane.
Just to tell you, like elite level is like 60%.
Yeah,
in a game. Like if you're at 60%, you're pretty good. Yeah,
no, his interceptions and duels and all that, like tackles, were just off the charts. He was really good, and he was really intentional about when he would step out to intervene, and I really like that. Payares, great on the ball, and I think like the two of them together, when you put their stats side by side and their performance side by side, it's really clear that John recruited them for each other. They have a really good connection, I think, already. Now, will we see that change? Will Yuma come in? Maybe Boehner, maybe Fox? Sure, I'm sure. I'm sure that'll look a little bit different as the season goes on. But I thought that they were really, really good. I think Martin Payares, his passing was like 92% accuracy, mostly forward passing. Really good from him as well. And yeah, they were just, I thought, both really, really good. Again, the 2 goals that Sacramento ended up scoring were really opportunistic. We were all pushed all the way up trying to rescue the result. So I don't hold that against them too much. So yeah, those 2 players look very exciting, I think.
Yeah. 85% passing for both center backs. And you might be thinking like, oh my God, like who are these like eternal optimists who are just praising the team after a 3-1 opening day loss. But the reality of this performance is when you look at it, like, and I'm asking each of you to remove the emotion, because obviously we don't like to lose. No one likes to lose. No one's like, and there are no moral victories, like that sort of thing, whatever. But the reality of this performance is that Locomotive create enough chances to win the game in the opening 20 minutes. Like they create a ton of chances. They also then create throughout the rest of the match, here and there. And Sacramento Republic, in the end, created the penalty and the 2 goals at the end on the counter, like sucker punches on the counter. They didn't really create all that much in between. They have 4 shots on target, 3 of which were the goal. Like, the goals, they literally only created 1 other shot on target the entire match. A lot of shots from distance, a lot of offsides, a lot of like there was a lot of moments where it might be like, oh, like, are we under threat? And we dealt with it. And so I do have to give a lot of credit to the defense, because at the end of the day, like, they really didn't do all that much. Like, and I know it might sound bitter, it might sound whatever, like, rewriting what actually happened. But when you watch the match back, when you look at the actual actions, we were by far the more dangerous team in all but basically 3 moments. Like, and that is, now that demonstrates, one, like, the fine margins of this game, like, by its very nature, that's how it plays out sometimes. But in this case, like, I think it's very indicative of the fact that if we play that match 100 times, or let's say we play it 34 more times across the whole of a season, if we play that match at that level, we will win a lot more than we lose. Like, and that is, like, the way that it fell in this match in particular, we did lose. I feel like that is going to end up being, if we can replicate this level of performance, this level of intensity, this is going to be the exception and not the rule.
I think that is absolutely right. And yeah, we are being positive about this, because there was a lot positive to like, except the scoreline, honestly.
Yeah.
But I'm going to jump down a little bit, because I think it leads nicely into what you just said, leads nicely into the other aspect of our performance that maybe you could, and people did criticize, which was Evan Newton in goal. We had a couple of questions from at NGNickGo on Instagram. He says, I know it's very early, but does Newton have the skill set / speed to play that high line? And Mark_P617 on Instagram said, is there any logic to playing out that aggressively as a goalkeeper? So, lot was being made about Evan Newton's performance. What did you make of it, Phil?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, because I think when we ask, like, if the question is, does Evan Newton have the skill set and speed to play that high line, I think we had quite a few examples during the match of him coming out and sweeping in the vein of an Ederson, Alisson, like Manuel Neuer, whoever, choose your, like, sweeper keeper of choice in world football. We saw him come out and we saw him deal with a lot of situations relatively, like, low stress, relatively, like, he comes out, he deals with it, he knocks it out for a throw, he clears it, whatever. I think he demonstrated throughout the match that he has that ability to recognize the situation where there's a long ball in between it, like in behind. Because when you play that high line, you must play with a sweeper. Like, there's really not another option, because if you're leaving that much space, especially without the benefit of VAR or anything like that, like, you have to have the keeper alive to any ball behind that defense. The question mark for me is not in, can he play as a sweeper? Because I think the trouble that he finds himself in the Rodrigo Lopez penalty concession is not about him playing as a sweeper, but it's about him understanding, like, once he's out there, understanding how he's going to be judged by the referee. Because I think the way that he sees that incident, and watching it back like a handful of times now, the way that he sees that incident is he gets a hand to the ball. Like, he absolutely gets a hand to the ball. And there's not so when he pops up and he's, like, wagging his finger and he's yelling at the referee, he's doing it with the knowledge that, yeah, I dove in and got the ball. The problem is that, number one, again, doesn't have the benefit of VAR, so he is going to rely on that referee. The second is that he needs to know that when he's venturing that wide, he has to understand, like, where he is in relation to the goal and whether or not challenging for the ball is worth it. Because when you're a keeper, if you dive in, like, that is maybe the one time that a keeper will be judged on the same level as an outfield player. if you're jumping to clear a corner, you could punch somebody in the face. Doesn't matter. Like, nobody's giving anything in there. Like, you could literally go to punch the ball and just haul off and knock someone out cold. No one's calling anything like in that scrap in the middle of the box. When it's you one-on-one with an outfield player outside of kind of the typical goalkeeping area, you're going to be judged like more harshly. And he just has no reason to dive in. And I think this week, like, they will spend a lot of time, like the goalkeeping coaches will spend a lot of time dissecting that moment and talking about how he needs to deal with it, like, in the future, because he's basically got no reason. Like, I think when he sees it from the broadcast angle, he'll be upset with himself. Like, I think in that moment, he thought he was absolutely making the right decision. I was watching in real time and thought, oh, yeah, that's a penalty, like, nailed on. Yeah. So I think it's just more about understanding those sorts of like one-on-one situations, because I think throughout the rest of the match, and obviously it doesn't draw a lot of attention, because when there is no chance, or there is no, like, if you just deal with it and knock it out for a throw, that is no longer a talking point in the match. Now, if he totally whiffs and leaves an open goal or slips or whatever, like, there's all these kinds of things that can happen that lead to the goalkeeper being a talking point. But in this moment, I think he has to learn that there are situations where he doesn't need to commit himself. Like, if he's made the decision to go out, he's got players behind him who are going to defend the rest of the pitch, who are going to like try to make up that ground, all those things. And Rodrigo Lopez, in that moment where he concedes the penalty, doesn't have an option. Like, at best, he takes a really immaculate touch of the ball and is able to float across towards the middle that is being defended by Locomotive players. So that's best case for him.
Right.
I think most likely Lopez takes a somewhat tough touch because he's under pressure and probably carries it out for a goal kick. Like, I think that's probably most likely. Worst case, he plays a floated cross into the middle, but he's not checking back onto his right foot. He's not able to score from that angle. And Newton just has to be able to do that risk assessment, like, in real time. And I think it will be a little bit of a learning curve for him, because we know him as, you know, he's the USL's like all-time shot stopper. That is not the type of goalkeeping that he's going to be asked to do. He's not going to be in a shooting gallery in Locomotive. He's going to be asked to, like we've talked about with Logan Ketterer the last few years, he's going to be asked to, well, in this case, sweep, but he's going to be asked to come up with big saves on the 3 or 4 occasions that the opposition comes up with a decent chance. And in this case, he kind of undermines the work that the rest of the team has done by making a rash decision in one moment right before halftime. I know that's a long-winded answer to the question, but there's a lot to unpack here for an experienced goalkeeper who's playing in a role that probably does feel a little bit unfamiliar.
No, yeah, I mean, that's really great analysis, Phil. And you said something at the end there that I think really kind of will resonate with my point about Evan's performance and kind of what we can expect over the season. But you said that he needs to be able to make that risk assessment in real time. And I think that has a lot to do with kind of the erratic nature of his performances. I think he's being asked, maybe for the first time in his career, to be more involved with the buildup and playing an active part in our outfield play than ever before. Because I decided to take a look at the stats over his career and see what I can find, any patterns or anything like that. And even just from this game alone, this appears to be the most he's ever been asked to be involved in the buildup in terms of passing. He completed 45 out of 49 passes, so that's 92%. This is the most passes Evan has ever had to attempt in the past, ever, I think. I think in the past he had 42 for Indy 11 against Louisville in 2020, and that game lasted like well over 100 minutes. So He also received 33 passes last night when he's used to receiving about half that at his past clubs. So I think there is something to that maybe this amount of staying switched on is a lot for him to get up to speed with. And actually, if you look at, for example, when he played at FC Cincinnati, that was something that was talked about quite a bit in local media, is that he was keeping so many clean sheets, and even gave an interview about how, like, you have to stay switched on because the defense is doing such a good job. There's not much to do.
Right.
And that's not, and it's not like we were getting like peppered or anything, but he is being asked to come off his line. The rushing out is intentional. Yeah. That is our understanding. That's what we've been told. This is intentional. This is part of Hutch's game. This is what he wants his goalkeepers doing. And we've seen Philip Weigl do it as well in preseason. And, you know, some clips were like, good Lord, what is he doing? But like, it is absolutely being demanded of them. So at the end of the day, goalkeepers must stop shots. I get that. That's what they're there for ultimately. But yeah, this aggression, this off the line approach is intentional. And, you know, just by looking at Evan's career, I think this is the most he's being asked to ever be involved in the build-up. And so maybe that mental awareness, I don't know, maybe that's not the right word, because most goalkeepers at the professional level are fully switched on for the 90 minutes, but just the ability to make all of these calculations and all of these risk assessments, as you put it, Phil, in real time, the entire time, while still playing the ball and making saves is quite a lot of arithmetic to do, you know, in game situations. So I think he'll get better as the season goes on. Obviously, it's easy to key on goalkeeper errors because there's only one of them on the pitch. Yeah. You can kind of hide performances by other players, to be fair, when you're an outfield player. So, yeah, it wasn't, you know, a perfect performance by any stretch. And I had my heart in my mouth, like at points, that, you know, some of the decisions he was making. But I do think, you know, it'll get better. And it's just one game. I'm sure he'll see, because I think the Rodrigo, for the record, I think the Rodrigo Lopez penalty is crazy. Like, he was in a position of relatively zero threat at that angle, had closed, and he maybe lost his head a little bit at, you know, opening night and what have you. So, yeah, that's kind of what I can see from his career, and I think that it will improve. But, you know, Logan Ketterer made some high-profile errors as well, and he's pretty revered around these parts. So I think we need to give Evan some time and some grace, I think.
Yeah, that slip against Phoenix always just, like, lives rent-free in my head. The Ketterer, when the turf just betrayed him.
It was just a sinkhole.
So yeah, sure. Those moments, I think it is what hurts most about Evan Newton's mistake, because I would say the two goals he's one-on-one, it's basically I don't even want to say a toss-up of whether or not he saves it. It's like nigh on impossible for him to save those, the two late goals. I think, I mean, to be honest, Lopez's penalty is also immaculate. And yeah, maybe Richie will take a lesson out of Lopez's book in terms of the taking.
Was a great penalty, I can't lie.
Yeah, it was a really good penalty. So, I mean, to be fair, of the 4 shots that he faced, he probably saves the one that was savable. The frustration with his performance is the fact that conceding that penalty, particularly at that time where literally stoppage time was up. Like, if that ball goes out for a goal kick, that is the end of the half and we go in at 1-0. That is when you just have to, like, it goes even beyond, like, the situational awareness of that moment, and it's situational awareness of where am I at in the game? Because if the ref has the whistle to his lips, like, I should not be diving in for this. Like that is not the time to take that risk.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So the question then to round this out, because obviously we've had a pretty broad and robust discussion about how things went on opening night, but the question to kind of round this out, at Alex Medic 17, aka Banana Man on Instagram, he asked, what's the biggest adjustment the team needs to make after this opening loss?
The biggest adjustment. Again, this might sound like overly optimistic, but I don't know that there's anything that needs to radically change because, one, I don't think you can extrapolate that much from one game and say, like, this isn't working or this needs to stop. Like, nobody dropped, like, an absolute shocker individually, and the team as a whole, I thought, performed quite well. So I don't know that there's necessarily, like, big, like, huge adjustment that I can point out. The only thing I would say is that I'm just hoping more personnel is available to Hutch. I hope in training they're giving him headaches about who to start. I would love to see an out-and-out number 9 start. Because I think if we're going to be putting like 3-4 XG up, like, we need someone to put those chances away, and a Lucho Solaniak or an Aaron Gomez can certainly do that. So my adjustment is just like more players available. I know that's not like necessarily answering the question, but I really didn't find too much wrong with the performance. I think we have to keep going with it. I think we have to trust that Hutch and his staff know what they're doing and that the players look bought in. So I think we should buy in too, honestly.
Yeah, I think the thing about this performance is the fact that it absolutely comes in. Well, I mean, we talk about, you know, Mark Lowry suffered a 3-1 defeat in his first match. Hutchinson, you know, similarly suffers a 3-1 defeat. But I come away from this match feeling a hell of a lot better than I did after the 3-1 opening night loss to Oklahoma City, because, I mean, aside from the goal, and again, this is no shade on like that team, because I have many great feelings about that inaugural season team that went to a Western Conference final, but that was a you know, toothless, like, lot of possession, not a lot of threat. You know, you didn't really see where the goals were coming from at that point. Like, Derek Gebhard got the goal, but it was scrappy. Like, there was a lot of really hard workers, but not necessarily a lot of like top end quality. This is not that, like, that. And I want to just be really clear, like, this performance, same scoreline, very different feel. And I think everybody watching will have felt the same way. Don't let those 2 late sucker punches by Sac Republic, like, overly color what was a really great performance. And I do want to shout out one last bright spot about this is the guys who came in for the injured players acquitted themselves exceedingly well. And I did want to call out in particular Ricardo Zacharias and Harry Brockbank. Zacharias, like, played at right back last year. He played on the wing. He played kind of like this, you know, amalgamation of right wing back. Popped up with a goal. He looked absolutely, especially once the second half started, he looked absolutely at home up top. Like, and I could see him contributing in that position the rest of the season. Probably unlucky, actually. He almost pulls off one of the goals of the season with like a back heel, like crazy flying, like Lucho level sort of effort. And yeah, so I wanted to call him out. And then Harry Brockbank, he's barely off the plane from England. His visa just cleared like a week and a half ago. He hasn't had much time to train, and he offered a ton of threat and was very bright in his right back spot, and I thought defended quite well as well. So yeah, all I'll say is that we take the L, we hold it, whatever, we learn from the mistakes we made, but there are so many bright spots about this Locomotive team, and on the evidence that we've seen, I think it's fair to say that we're not gonna lose with this team as long as they're healthy, playing at this level. Like, we're not gonna lose that often if they're performing at this level. So I take a lot of heart from the fact that there was so much. Yeah, there were so many positives out of what could be taken as like a really, and I mean, losing late is horrible. Don't get me wrong, really hate it. But we deserve to win in Sacramento, and I don't know that we've been able to say that like all that often in the past when we go away places. Like, sometimes we would snatch wins and that sort of thing, but we've gone away to a really good USL team, and for the better part of like 70, 80 minutes, we were by far the better team. So I feel okay about that. If there's a couple of goalkeeping things and a couple of like link up things that can continue to improve, then yeah, I'm pretty satisfied.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm just looking forward to the next one.
And that is where we'll head next. So Mika, I guess we'll take a quick break, and then we will come back and we'll preview the home opener, a Derby del Camino Real against New Mexico United.
Scenes. Yeah.
The Seriously Loco match preview. Welcome back to Seriously Loco, everyone. Well, we are joined at the interval by a member of the crew, Christian Canales. Christian, I know it's been a busy night for you, but thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, man. It's true what they say. Life comes at you fast.
It's a feature that I'm like glancing into, and I'm just choosing to ignore for the time being.
That's fair. It's not real. It's not real until there's a warm body.
Right. Right. So guys, we've talked all about the Sacramento Republic game, but we've got a home opener against local rivals, New Mexico United, at Southwest University Park this Saturday. Huge match, obviously, to bounce back in the context of the loss. New Mexico also getting off to a winning start. And Christian, I mean, with you being fresh to the pot, I'm just going to throw you straight on the spot. In terms of obviously both teams coming in on opposite sides of the results spectrum, how do you feel about Locomotive coming home after that match in Sac Republic?
You know, I think that this will be an interesting thing to see as far as because I think when you have a loss, especially like the one against Sacramento, where I truly think an unbiased opinion is that we were the better team on the field. I think that how the team bounces back after a loss like that is really going to show what kind of manager John is. I think that how you respond to a result like that really shows more about how he manages those attitudes and personalities coming into a particularly big match this week. Because, yeah, they lost, and the scoreline is bad. And at the end of the day, you know, that's what matters. You know, the result and the goal differential is what determines your spot on the table. But I think that it is entirely plausible that they come into this game really pissed off. And I'm hoping that's what happens. I hope that they feel really hard done by in that last match, and I think that that they come into this game with a fire for several reasons. One, because they should have won the last match. Two, because it's the season opener at home, and three, because it's a derby. So I think that they take into account all of those factors and really come out, you know, with guns blazing.
Yeah, no, all great points. And Mika, based on the conversation that we had about the Sacramento game, What are you most looking for in Locomotive's approach in this one, and what is the one thing that fans should be looking for when Locomotive come out of the blocks against New Mexico?
I mean, it kind of harkens back to what Banana Man asked us about the biggest adjustment. I think we got to just do more of the same and better, and play the entertaining football that Hutch promised us, right? Because again, I think the motivation should already be there from like Christian was saying, being hard done by in California. On top of that, this is your chance to make an impression on the fans. A lot of these players are new, don't have that same relationship with the fans that players from years 1 through 3 have, and so this is their chance to make an impression, because there will be people there that maybe didn't watch Sacramento, and this is actually how the season starts for them, right? They're the fans that only come to the home games, which is fine. But yeah, I'm just looking for more of the same, more of that same intensity, a willingness to win and to capitalize on all the chances that we do create, because it seems to me like that's not going to be a problem this season. Like it has been in the past, actually, looking dangerous in front of goal. And I think this is actually a really great opportunity to I don't know, I guess you could say a narrative has already kind of started based on one game, but maybe to shift that narrative. This fixture is really finely balanced. The record is currently 2 wins, 7 draws, 2 losses all time between these Rio Grande rivals. So it's an opportunity to kind of swing the fixture in our way. And look, New Mexico United, they got off to a winning start with a 2-0 defeat of Las Vegas Lights, and good for them, but it's Las Vegas Lights. I mean, with all due respect, and they were at home.
Lads, it's Las Vegas. That
was right. Exactly. And I did watch that game, and it seems like Zach Prince, the new boss up in Albuquerque, is kind of building on a lot of the things that Troy Lesesne put in place there. The 3 at the back is still looking like the way they're going to go. He seems to have tweaked it a little bit, but again, doesn't appear to be blowing up the tactical philosophy necessarily. But they've suffered an early muscle injury of their own with Austin Yearwood coming off. So that could be an opportunity for us if they're not at full strength either. We can, I'm already expecting our pacey attackers to give them fits, because New Mexico United are not one of the faster teams in the league anyway. And sure, they've improved, but I don't know if they've improved to push the likes of Phoenix and Colorado and teams like that and us. I still think that there's a little bit of work to be done there, even though they do have some good pieces. So yeah, I'm just looking for us to do more of the same and take the game to them, and show them who's really the better club in this all-time fixture.
Watching that game between New Mexico and Vegas, I do think, and looking at the stats as well, New Mexico actually conceded possession. So it is a very Lesesne type approach in terms of they're going to let the opposition have the ball. They're going to sit back. They're going to look to counter. I think the reason that I really like this matchup for Locomotive is because this particular brand of football from John Hutchinson isn't possession for the sake of it. They're not just holding onto the ball, like they're getting the ball into dangerous areas, attacking areas. They're getting it forward. So if we have a lot of the ball, there are very few moments where we're just waiting to be pressed or waiting to allow the opposition to put us under pressure or create a problem for us. So I do really actually like the idea of playing a counter-attacking side, because if they counter and they commit bodies forward, we also counter. Like, we
Right.
don't just have the ball. It's like, we also will hit you on the break. It may not be our like MO. We're not going to sit back and absorb pressure. That's not really the way that it goes. But if we win the ball back, we're going to advance it quickly up the field. And I love the idea of Francois, Sanupe, and any combination of that, plus adding Diego Luna from midfield and Dylan Maris from midfield, running at 3 people in front of them. I love that. I think that suits us completely. And if their fullbacks are part of their attack, Harry Swartz got a goal this weekend. And we know Josh Suggs pushes up the field.
Daniel Bruce as well.
Yeah. And I love the idea of those guys getting caught high up the field with 4 or 5 Locomotive attackers running at a back 3. Really love that idea.
Yeah, speaking of getting caught up the field, one thing that I think is a bit different from Zach Prince's New Mexico United is the center backs are kind of also being allowed to join the attack, which I think is really fascinating, kind of almost like a Sheffield United-esque type thing under Chris Wilder. But for example, Alexis Suahi, the new signing, the one that I actually kind of profiled thinking he might be a good fit for Locomotive before we knew who was going to take over. He was allowed to join the attack a couple times, even had a couple shots from distance that weren't too far off. But yeah, he was finding himself in positions that you might not think a center back should be in necessarily. And if they're going to leave those gaps, watch out because like we saw with Sanupe, for example, and the way that he baited Dan Casey into that penalty, that space, he sensed it immediately, ran diagonally across the front line and got into there. And I think if the center backs are leaving their positions to join the attack, then we can feast. So yeah, I think the matchup is quite tasty in that way, tactically speaking. And yeah, I mean, at the same time though, cliches abound and maybe form goes out the window with these two hated rivals. So we'll see. I mean, arguably they're the ones in better form having won, but they scored 2 set pieces. Another thing I guess that we can expect from Zach Prince, apparently he was kind of the designer of the set pieces under Troy Lesesne, and that looks to be continuing. Some really poor defending by Las Vegas Lights, it has to be said, but especially for the first one, which somehow is up for goal of the week. Make of that what you will, but 2 set pieces, and didn't score anything from open play. So I'm hoping that we can take the game to them and capitalize on some of the gaps they'll be leaving.
So, Christian, with all that being said, there is kind of an underlying narrative floating through this game, aside from the fact that it's a derby, aside from the fact that there's a little bit of, well, I say a little bit, there's probably more history between us and New Mexico United than basically any other team in USL because of the way the divisional alignments hit across the last 2 seasons. So, Jake Konecki on Twitter asks, I noticed he didn't play Saturday, but do you think New Mexico United starts Jerome Kiesewetter this Saturday to spite us? The Boo Birds are going to be ready for it, I'm sure. A man who we knew very affectionately as the orthodontist because he was always hitting braces. And a man who has a lot of history for El Paso Locomotive, despite just spending, part of one season here. He does now ply his trade for our rivals to the north. Do you think the Jerome Kiesewetter narrative plays a part in the way that this match plays out?
No, I don't think so. I think that, for whatever reason, he hit a stride when he was with us. And there's been, he's gone to several teams since then. And whatever the reason, I don't think he has it for USL Championship at this point. And I don't know if it's an attitude thing or a quality thing. I don't know what happened. But at this point, after all the chances that he's had in other places, you have to think that it's not a fluke. It's not that they're just not seeing what he has to offer. New Mexico has really great depth in attack. I just don't think that he'll be necessary, in this match.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think, unfortunately for Jerome, I do think it looks like, I mean, Nico Brett is going to be first choice for New Mexico United, I would say likely all season. And then Preston, Itaka Preston, who joined them from Hartford, previously played in Vegas as well. Looks like he got the nod at that forward spot ahead of Kiesewetter. So yeah, I think unfortunately, whatever lightning he caught in the bottle during his time in El Paso, where he just went absolutely crazy, it just seems to have abandoned him a little bit. And not to say that we don't, this is a really complicated topic too. And Mika, I want to bring you into this, but like the feelings about Jerome Kiesewetter, because it's one that kind of goes back and forth. A player who chased a higher level opportunity in MLS, has now bounced around the championship a little bit with Tulsa, Sacramento, and now landing in New Mexico. Is this the type of player that I mean, Jake said the Boo Birds will be ready, but I mean, is this kind of like, I don't know, does this situation really fit that?
Listen, I think that it's, at the end of the day, I think it is just all kind of in good fun. I don't know that anyone like hates Jerome Kiesewetter. Like that would be a really weird take. I think the complication, I guess, in the relationship with the fans is that he's not as gregarious a guy as, say, like a Sebastian Velasquez, who people can connect with pretty immediately, because he is so open and present in the community, even online, things of that nature. I mean, Jerome Kiesewetter, not to say that he's like not unfriendly, he's actually one of the like friendliest guys I've ever met. He's just a little more low key, and so that, some might take that as being a little bit standoffish, on top of the fact that he left for MLS. And, even I think the three of us have a complicated relationship with MLS as well. So that could have left a bad taste. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that it necessarily merits him being booed, but I don't have a problem with it. He's a former player. He now plays for the hated rival, and he's going to get that smoke on Saturday, and it is what it is. I'll never forget what he did for us. And yeah, I did take a brief look at some of his stats, and it just hasn't really worked out for him. He hasn't played a whole lot. I mean, he got like 1,000 minutes last season for Tulsa, and honestly, I think it was more of a cut their losses kind of thing, both Tulsa and New Mexico, because they did exchange Brian Brown, who, as we know, was supposed to break the internet and really couldn't even break into the starting 11. So, so I think that both clubs kind of just saw an opportunity to maybe give two players, new pastures and see if they can make it work again. So, I'd be surprised if he started, but at the same time, I don't know. Maybe Zach Prince thinks that that's the motivation he needs, is to come back to the SWUP and perform. But I mean, I'm not too worried about it. It'll be odd for sure. But yeah, it's been a little while now, and I think a lot has gone on. I think a lot of players have become near and dear to our hearts since him. So yeah, to the Boo Birds, I say let it rip. Whatever, it's football. That's what you get,
Yeah, I guess we'll get a sense of where Zach Prince lands on the Mark Lowry scale in terms of playing ex-players as motivation in and of itself.
Right.
That was something Mark deployed quite frequently I think probably the best example is Saeed Robinson, almost exclusively starting against Colorado Springs, and enjoying quite a bit of success, to be fair. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. But with that being said, we got a question from @WhatAViper on Instagram, and he asked, are we always going to lose these type of players like Memo to Oakland, Nick Ross to Sacramento, Kiesewetter goes to New Mexico United? What do you guys make of like guys, making these moves around the league?
I mean, that was an interesting point, and I want to make sure I understood the question. It's that we're going to lose playing against them, right?
Right. Lose to them, yeah.
Yeah, lose two ex-players. Yeah, sorry. I think I worded that wrong.
That's okay. So I think that that wasn't a point that was a point that I hadn't thought of yet. But I mean, it is fact. I think those are the only ex-players that we've ever played against, and we're 0 for 2 so far. I don't know that this is going to be exactly the same because, like I said, I don't think that he sees the field. So it's not quite the same as Memo in Oakland or Nick in Sacramento.
To be fair, when Nick went off, I think it was 1-1. So
and he got a card, and I don't know about that one.
They highlighted Sac Republic's post-game article actually highlighted Nick Ross because they were like, he led the team with 2 chances created. And I was like, well, I don't remember him. But no, I think anybody who's listened to this podcast before knows that we rate Nick Ross. But this sort of thing, like, I mean, the dynamics with ex-players, it's always tough. I think we talked before the playoff game against Oakland, we talked about the fact that like we needed to neutralize that narrative and just make it kind of not a talking point. I think in this case, Kiesewetter, like if he plays, Kiesewetter maybe is not like as intense of it's not a motivation thing, because ultimately, like, I think it would be one thing if it had been he'd struggled for minutes with us and, he got jaded and he moved on to try to find a better opportunity. He rediscovered something with El Paso Locomotive, something that he hadn't experienced in a long, long time, unfortunately, like in his playing career in Germany. So he found a level that he hadn't been able to hit that earned him a chance at a contract with Inter Miami, like an expansion team in MLS. And that is a very rare opportunity for him to kind of kickstart his career again at a very high level. So I don't think like Memo, I think something to prove, like was a bit player under Mark, wasn't a consistent starter, had something to prove. Nick, even, new boss comes in and suddenly he's, not renewed, not one of the players to stick around to be part of this new era. Kiesewetter essentially, like, and I swear I'm saying this from a place of respect, and I want to make that really clear. But El Paso Locomotive gave him his career back, like in many ways. And the opportunities that he got as a result of playing and getting a chance to play here in El Paso, I don't think he's going to have the same level of like, there's not an extra motivation to show like, hey, I'll show them what I can do. It's like, no, you hit your highest level with us. So yeah, I think maybe not the level of motivation, and we'll see to what level his involvement is on Saturday. It'll be really interesting to see, to see whether he's involved and if he is, to what extent. But he does make the bench against Vegas. He did not make an appearance off the bench, but they were winning as well. So it could be that we see, I would say we're most likely to see Kiesewetter in a situation where New Mexico is trailing and is chasing goals. That is my humble prediction for that. But anyways, Christian, we have a week of USL games under our belt, and thus the Seriously Loco crew has a week of predictions under the belt. First, how did we do? And then obviously we've got to make our predictions about New Mexico United.
Yeah, well, Phil, you, me, and Austin did not fare well last week, but Little Miss Turncoat down there.
Damn.
Just kidding, but seriously. Mika, Phil, you, me, and Phil, you and I predicted a draw. I had Gomez scoring. He doesn't make the trip to Sacramento. You had a 2-2 draw with Diego scoring. That wasn't to be. Austin, off the air, had predicted a 2-1 victory with Dylan scoring. So we were completely wrong on all three counts there. So you, me, and Austin, 0 points for the gentleman. But Mika predicted a 1-2 El Paso loss. So she got a point for the result. And with Diego scoring. So Mika leads us all with 1 point to 0 for the three of us now.
I'm not happy about it, by the way. To be very clear, I did not want us to lose just for fucking pick 'em.
It's strictly business.
It's business.
So with all that being said, Christian, I think it would be fitting for you to kick us off with your prediction for New Mexico's visit to the SWUP this weekend and result in goal scorers if applicable.
Yeah, I think the average is going to play out here. I think it will be a draw, but I think it will be a goal fest. I think we're going to end up with a 2-2 draw in this match, and I think that hopefully he makes an appearance. But I think that Lucho will score in this match.
Okay. Yeah, Lucho Solaniak, I think notably absent on the trip, but not absent for any particularly intense reason, just a fitness concern from our blonde number 9. So yeah, I'm gonna go on my prediction. I'm gonna say I feel pretty bullish about this, and I feel pretty good about the matchup. I'm actually gonna go for a 2-1 win. I almost went with more goals, but I'm thinking the finishing is just gonna be a journey for us. Like, I think the chance creation is there. I think the finishing is gonna come. And I think to match his winger pair partner, I think Cristiano Francois gets off the mark for Locomotive. He created a lot, and I think he finds himself on the end of a move this weekend. You're muted.
And I was muted. I'm going bolder than you, Phil. I am going 3-0 El Paso Locomotive, clean sheets. And I think I'm going to pick Luna again because he came very close with the rebound chance, the volley, or the first time chance that he took. And it just went past the outside of the bar. So I'm going with Diego Luna to score. He loves scoring in front of the fans, in front of the eighth notch. And with the sheer amount of chances that we're creating, I'm hoping that we can just actually capitalize on him. So a little bit of wishful thinking, I think. But it's the derby, and I really want to smash him at home.
I do like the journey that you've gone on over the last couple of games, going from predicting us to lose the first game to now predicting us to smash our rivals. So I'm enjoying the emotional roller coaster that we're on. And to be fair, we are on it. Like, we're fully on it.
Yeah, I mean, just hang on because it's going to be a wild season.
Yeah, lots to look forward to this weekend. A huge match at the SWUP, and I think it's just what everyone has been waiting for all these months. Obviously, getting things started away from home. We talked about some of the positives at the beginning of the episode, but there is really nothing quite like match day at an El Paso Locomotive home game. So for each of you guys, obviously, I'm assuming you guys will be in the ground for this one. So what are you most looking forward to about, opening day for, that first home match for Locomotive this season?
Other than the football, the Scran. If you're not following the phenomenon on football Twitter, Footy Scran, go follow it. It's super entertaining. See all the food from around the world at different football grounds. And I will try my best to get Locomotive's Scran posted because we've got some good options.
What? Okay, so now I'll ask this of both you guys. And I'm going to just put this disclaimer out there because obviously I've unfortunately been outside of the stadium for a full season now. Or 2 full seasons, I guess, whatever. I don't know what fucking year it is. So for you guys, of a menu item that is available at the SWUP, what is the one that you submit as this is Locomotive Scran to Footy Scran?
There's some. I've only had one, and it was a long time ago. But I know they still have them. But they have the crazy hot dogs.
The Juarez dogs.
Yeah, the Juarez dogs.
Absolutely.
There's all different kinds. So I think any of those would be a good submission.
That's kind of where my head went, but I wasn't sure if they were still doing them.
Yeah, that's a good one. If not a Juarez dog, I would go with the nachos that come in the soccer ball bowl with the green spicy sauce on top. So good.
Yeah.
So good, and you get a lot for what you pay for. Which is nice because, as we know, Footy Scran is super expensive in the States. So, yeah, either of those two.
Yeah.
And I would love to see the takes from, the colonizers across the pond who put mushy peas on everything. So
where are the peas?
Yeah, where are the peas?
There is not gravy on this. I was told there would be gravy. I also love the idea of you guys single-handedly redeeming the borderland Mexican hot dog because the Sonora dog got a horrible rap with that green bunned monstrosity out of Austin FC. So I'm looking forward to a respectable overloaded hot dog being presented on Footy Scran, and I think to be fair, I think that would do numbers, especially the Juarez dog with all the toppings. I think British people would go absolutely fucking crazy for that. They're like, you put beans on a hot dog? I'm there.
That's actually a great point. Oh my god. We're not so different, you and I. Yeah, look, the Sonora dog, I read, I don't know how true it is, but someone was like, oh, it's a family that makes them and that they are legit from Sonora or whatever. And that's fine, but there's no reason to shamrock shake a hot dog bun. There's just zero. I know you're verde or whatever, that's not necessary.
It's unnecessary.
Truly, it's not.
Don't do it. There's no reason for this.
Yeah, just
tears in my eyes. Please
green
stop.
Beer, I'll take that. That's fine. But don't make a piece of bread green. That's weird.
That's when I throw my bread away.
That's a sign it's had enough.
Right.
It's just my lizard brain is telling me if you see green bread, don't eat it. My caveman instincts are kicking in.
Self-preservation.
Poison dart bread.
Oh, well, I mean, I think you can all tell how we're trying to cope with the stress of a derby this weekend by just going totally off the rails. I will say throughout this season and thanks, I mean, I will say thanks to the club for accommodating us for yet another year of media coverage of the team. And I know you guys are so looking forward to being pitch side again. And I think just having Seriously Loco in the stadium is it's a privilege to be able to cover this team and to be able to get access. I'm really looking forward to ideally now that COVID has entered this endemic stage and we've kind of coped with, things. I am really looking forward to you guys getting access to the post-match pressers and all that. I'm really looking forward to how that'll go this season. But yeah, just excited, I think, overall for football to return to the SWUP. And I'm sure, we've seen that Eighth Notch has some tifos cooking. And yeah, so with the coverage, with the atmosphere, with the football on display, I think we're in for a treat this year. And regardless of the results along the way, like, we are going to see some really entertaining football. And I think this Saturday is going to be no different. So if you are able at all to make it to the SWUP, I would prioritize that. Absolutely. Guys, anything I'm leaving out, or anything that we're looking forward to that I've not mentioned?
I think we covered it all, but yeah, see y'all at the SWUP. Subscribe to the Patreon, give us a like. Come on, you locos.
Yeah, check out Mika's latest piece on Patreon, as we mentioned at the top of the show. We've also got a bunch of articles for those of you, like, if you subscribe to the Patreon, or if you don't, you can find on our Patreon all kinds of articles about new player signings and in particular, a few of the signings who featured heavily in this match against Sac Republic. So you can catch up on any of those acquisitions that you may have missed out on. And we will be back after the match against New Mexico to recap the derby. And we'll be watching along for our away matches. We did a little bit of a watch along. So thanks to all the folks who joined us on Twitch and Facebook and Twitter. Getting YouTube fired back up. There's some kind of weird thing account wise with YouTube. So Twitch, I think, is the coolest place to kind of interact, and you can be in the live chat like as we're going. So all of our away matches, we're going to try to do those watch alongs. So obviously not this weekend, because you'll have, if you're watching in El Paso and not in the stadium, you'll have the great Duke Keith on the call. So no worries. You don't need us talking over Duke. But if you're, lamenting the fact, especially, we will prioritize, I promise, to all those who watch San Antonio this weekend. We will prioritize the San Antonio match. We'll really make sure that we have a watch along for that, so you're not subjected to whatever it is passes for commentary in that in that team's. I'm so sorry if the broadcaster is listening to this, but they're just, constructive criticism. There's some improvements that can be made, like watching the game that's going on in front of you.
Step one.
So anyways, yeah, tons going on at Seriously Loco. So you can find us at Seriously Loco on Twitter, at Seriously_Loco on Instagram. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. Find our patreon.com/Seriously Loco. check out all those things, and you can catch up with what we've got going on. But thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're really looking forward to another huge home opener in the SWUP. And until then, stay loco.